Renaissance, yes. I found Renaissance in 1983. They advertised for a drummer in an English paper, which was called Melody Maker, and they used to put adverts for musicians. So I didn't know anything about Renaissance. I went along and I did an audition and started with them in '83. I think I did one tour, maybe 6 or 7 weeks in America and a little bit in Europe, and that was the end of the band at that time. Dysrhythmia is a band that I started with Jacko Jakjic, guitar player, and Danny Thompson, a double bass player, and Pandit Dinesh, and we made one album in 1986, 1987. We did make another album, and we started to make another album, but we've never finished it. It's taken a lot of years. 22 years later, we still haven't finished it. Yeah, that was my first solo record. I was looking for a direction, to go in, and I had a lot of good friends like Mick Kahn and Gary Sanctuary. So I was just trying to make some music that I thought was interesting music from the point of view of the drums, but not a record which displayed, a lot of technique on the drums. So yeah, that feels like a long time ago. Yeah, 05 Rick, he requested to be my friend on MySpace. I get many requests to, with MySpace. You probably know MySpace. And I looked at his picture, and he looked a bit like Chris Maitland, the first drummer of Porcupine Tree. And so I clicked on his picture to see who he was, and I listened to the music, and he made some songs like double trio idea of King Crimson. Very interesting stuff. And I looked at the comments. I could see there were some comments from some friends of mine. So I wrote to him and I said, I really like your stuff. Very experimental, very strange music. And he said, I'm coming to your concert next week in Cambridge. So we met and we spoke about the idea of a collaboration. And so we made the first record, Drop, without any kind of commercial consideration. It's very much a pure kind of path of exactly what Rick and I wanted to do. So we did it without a record company, without a publishing company. We just followed exactly where we wanted to go with these two records. Well, first of all, of course, you need some kind of studio. And unfortunately, for drummers, you probably need the best kind of studio. For maybe a keyboard player, you can go in your bedroom because you're only recording 2 channels directly to the computer. Or if you're a guitarist, you can sit in a room with one microphone and play. I need a big room with like 16 microphones, a big desk. It's very involved. And luckily, I found a house in London where I can play the drums and I can record, so it's easy for me to make good sounding projects. I recorded the drums for Dead Wing there, for Fear of a Blamed Planet, Neil Recurring, Steve's solo album, OSI. I made a record there with Claudio Baglioni. It's a very professional sounding studio, and I do a lot of collaborations with people around the world. They send me their tracks, and we use Pro Tools or Logic, it doesn't matter, and I make the things like that. So yes, if you're going to try to make your own product, of course you need your own studio to a degree, and unfortunately for drums, that's the hardest thing of all. You have to buy 16 mics, you have to buy a big desk. Other people can just use a laptop and a little input. That was fantastic. That was really good. That was the first time I met Tony, and everything was new to me. I didn't know Claudio, I didn't know his songs, I didn't know Tony, and it's strange. I remember the first night we played a big room, maybe 20,000 people. Everybody sung all of Claudio's songs. Maybe I was the person in the room who really didn't know the songs. And it was a great time. It was a great time for me. In the early 90s, I came to Italy a lot and worked with a lot of different artists, and that was the first big tour I did with Claudio and with Tony. And then, 16 years later, I ended up with Tony again in King Crimson. And in fact, Tony is going to play support to Porcupine Tree with his band Stickmen, with Pat Mastalotto, in the last part of the Porcupine Tree tour, which is later on this month. I'd like to learn to play all of them, but yes, I can play a little bit of piano, I can play a little bit of guitar, and I can play a little bit of bass. And luckily, with computer technology, you can make it sound okay. Just for the purpose of demonstration, usually, when I write, I normally write songs starting with the drums, and then I think of a bass line or a guitar riff that fits the drums. So when I give my demos to Steve or Richard or Colin or 05 Rig, usually they are based with drum rhythms and bass lines and guitar lines, and I say to them, look, the bass line and the guitar line and the keyboards, the notes are not important, but the rhythm is important. So if you can keep this rhythm, or if you like the notes, keep the notes, but if you want to change the notes, I don't care, but the rhythm is important of the bass with the drums. The guitar is important, which I've composed with the drums. So many of my compositions start like this. I just need to find people to collaborate with who want to, expand the ideas, as I do with Steve Wilson or with 05 Rig or Richard and Colin, in fact.